Good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Northland Sports Page. It's Brian Prudhomme. It's Dave Cook. It is Saturday. Happy winter weather advisory. Happy, hopefully, end of the week that we had called winter because we talked about the first day of spring being last week, and that was true. And just as predicted, the weather forecasters got one right. It was the first and hopefully only week of winter this past week. Good morning, Dave Cook.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Probably better, but we're okay.
I think we're both doing better because we got a chance to spend some time together before the show today. This is going to get a little sentimental, a little sappy for this early in the show, but again, during game weeks, we see each other a lot, but the winter sports season is over. As I just said, spring hasn't exactly sprung for that to start, so we don't see each other except for the shows now. And it kind of showed this morning. Yeah,
no, there was a lot of visiting and carrying on, and that's the part I hope that comes across the radio is that you and I just like to hang out and make fun of each other.
Right. And they gave us microphones to do that. So we should have some fun today. Happy Easter weekend to everybody, too. Good Friday yesterday. Hopefully we can make it a great Saturday for everybody today. And then Easter Sunday tomorrow. We've talked about all the fine dining options that you have associated with Easter. What does your family have on the agenda tomorrow?
We have a gigantic ham sitting in our refrigerator right now.
You're sitting in the refrigerator?
Oh,
you're a different sort of gigantic ham.
Yeah, well, that's fact as well. Although I think there are people I know that wouldn't mind if I was sitting in the refrigerator.
Need to cool off a bit, Dave?
Yes.
All right.
It's gonna be fun. We're having mom over and my mother-in-law's in town, and so we'll. It's a little closer gathering. Avery and Andrew couldn't make it back into town, and so it's going to be
Mother Nature didn't really want people traveling a lot this week either. We will be at Easter brunch as a family. I'm looking forward to that tomorrow as well. Should be a fun weekend. It's a fun weekend in sports because, again, we talk about March Madness over and over and over again. March is down to just today and tomorrow left in it, but there's plenty of madness still left. You pick a sport, you pick a level, you've got it.
We've talked in the past about best sports months.
Yes.
This is probably the best sports weekend.
Right, because the month still has a debate. I don't want to give that away because we'll probably use it as an opening topic down the road again, but there's been a lot of debate of, well, it's got to be March because it's got that label. I get it, but don't forget September and October, and people can make cases for a lot of different things.
Yeah, but this weekend, when you've got college hockey playoffs, you got college basketball playoffs, you got the opening week of baseball, you've got the NFL draft talk in high end.
Right.
You know, you've got everything going on. There seems to be money on the table. The NHL is in that time of year where you better win or you're going home. Basketball is the same way right now for a team that's more than relative.
Right.
And for multiple reasons this week. But this weekend
some fun, some not so fun.
Right. This weekend is just kind of the accumulation of all these things all in one 3-day period.
It really is. You know the best thing about everything you just said? You give me a lot of grief that I do the show itinerary. I map out the show, and then you do more of the jotting down of things that you're going to cover. But you basically just plan the show with your latest soliloquy because everything you mentioned we will probably address today because, you know, our big thing is to be kind of the water cooler topic du jour, and there's about 17 of them now, so we're going to use 2 hours to get to each of them.
And that's pretty impressive because normally when I try to write down a show, you say, do you want to have a show after this one?
Right.
Now this one, I'm pretty good.
Well, and I just enjoy having you write everything down because stylistically, we are very, very different in that sense, but it comes together rather nicely. We try every Saturday for 2 hours from 10 a.m. to noon to basically get on the mic and hopefully not lay an egg.
Yep.
Yes, I've had some analysts that like to do that as well. Agreeable folks are great, but you know, when it comes to the talk show format, debatable radio makes for better banter.
That is why I write some things down.
Absolutely.
Make sure I can do more than just one answer. Like it would be like a tennis match. You'd be shooting the ball over to me and I'd go doink right back to you and you'd be like, oh, come on, do something with it.
Well, with my physical limitations, if we play tennis, that might be what I want you to do. So it can come in handy at some point. One thing there's no debating is we have tremendous sponsors. I want to start today, Dave. We get to welcome one back to the family.
Absolutely. It's really nice to have Mike Regan from Christensen Group Insurance back with us.
Yes.
Because, you know, gone for a little bit of time, take a deep breath and jump back in. I guess that means he was comfortable with what he was getting.
I think he also realized, hey, wait a minute. This is one of the more chaotic and fun moments in sports. I might want to get back on a sports talk show. We love him, and he did just that.
Yeah, sign me up, right? Comfort Systems of Duluth. Speaking of our little bit of winter run back, if you're a homeowner in Duluth and you're not on Comfort Systems of Duluth, give one
You're
of
doing
us
it
a
wrong.
call. Right.
People make fun of me because of the amount that I love the movie Mr. Mom. Like, I love Michael Keaton, okay? I'm just going to say that. But if people say, you know, name your favorite Michael Keaton movies, most people have a litany, and Mr. Mom gets in there somewhere. It's top 2 or 3 for me. One of my favorite quotes from Mr. Mom is, you're doing it wrong. And every time you say, if you're not on Comfort Systems, That's my tagline. You're doing it wrong.
It's just so. I'm just gonna say it's easy. It's never easy because you call them when things aren't going great,
Right.
And
then suddenly they are.
It is, and I've told you one of my favorite lines in my job is to have somebody say, "Well, you got a guy," meaning me, right?
Right.
Well, when it comes to home issues, when you're on comfort systems, you kind of got a guy.
You know what you sound like with that? You remember when Torrey Hunter did broadcast work for the Twins?
Yes.
And opposing crowds would maybe read a fly ball off the bat wrong and go bonkers, and it turns out to be a routine fly. Torrey Hunter would say, "Calm down, we got a guy there." That's what it reminds me of.
Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Stewart Spike Sports and Trophies, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, the Blackwoods Group, including their locations on London Road, in Proctor and in Two Harbors, Blackwater downtown, and Tavern on the Hill. Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Krause Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer, OAR Holdings, Hoops Brewing, and the OG Arola Architecture Studio.
100%. We love our sponsors. They allow us to bring you what we hope is a great show today. Got a good guest lineup. We've got Dave Hoops coming your way at about 10:45. In front of him today will be Billy Watson. Bill has a birthday today, but he's going to take time out of it to discuss NCAA hockey and whatever the Bulldog roster might look like next season as well.
Yeah, and I want to talk to him a little bit about NIL. And when is that really going to start impacting college hockey? Because the Gopher basketball team, I don't know if you've noticed, Brian, is decimated.
I was going to say, all the recruiting in-state that they did so well is suddenly departing just as quickly.
How can you even do it? Like, Ben Johnson has to recruit 12 guys this year. He's got Dawson Garcia. He's got the kid from Cherry coming, and let's see what else we can get this year.
We'll see what they can do. Dave Hoops and Bill Watson together will help us finish out hour number one. Hour number two, it's got a headliner. There's a reason that hour number two only has one guest. What more could you need? We're going to chat with, I just brought up Torrey Hunter and his time as a broadcaster, the most famous. Now, there are a few. We've talked to Denard Span. I would love to talk to Trevor Plouffe someday. Glenn Perkins does a nice job. Former players in the Twins broadcast booth is definitely a thing. We've probably got the biggest name in there. Justin Morneau is going to join us to start hour number two today.
Yep, when you said there's more to come, you're darn right there is. It's Justin Morneau.
Well, how about a month and a half ago when I told you, and shout out to Jeff Lottie, St. Scholastica and Duluth Superior Dukes legend Jeff Lottie, when I came to you and I said, Dave, you're not going to believe whose contact information I got from Jeff Lottie today, and we're engaging in show-related conversation. Justin Morneau was not part of the conversation that you thought it would be.
No, 100%. There was all kinds of other names that I would have come up with way before I came out with Justin Morneau. But, I mean, and what we should do, Brian, and I don't know if we'll have time to do this, but what we should do is try to draw him into some hockey talk, too.
We should see if we can do that. He knows a little puck without a doubt.
Does.
And everybody in Twinsland talks puck also, because Kirby Puckett is still the absolute legend, the undefeated Minnesota Twins. But the attitude wasn't necessarily like that. There was a little bit of aura of defeat despite the win on Thursday, because you didn't lose the game, but you did lose Royce Lewis to the injured list. Max Kepler shook up a little bit as well. It was a fun win with a cost.
Yeah, it's tough too, because you hear about athletes that are, not people friendly, right? Josh Donaldson comes to mind of somebody who was just negative Nelly. You watched Lewis get hurt, right? And we're ready to drop the bomb on this whole season now, because he could have tweaked a quad, but he could have tore it from his bone, right? And that's the direction we always go. And then to hear him just be pleasant and realizing that this is just the next thing that's in the way, and it's really refreshing to feel. You can feel bad for Royce Lewis because Royce Lewis doesn't seem to feel bad for himself.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does, which is the most interesting part, because you try to take something from post-game interviews or press conferences and what have you, and he's so smiley and so positive. Usually if you're in pain, if you're injured, you're difficult to be around, or you're not doing much, or you don't want to talk to people.
Correct.
Sometimes you get kind of misled with Royce Lewis's positivity, because you go, oh, well, he's going to be back in the lineup tomorrow. No, he's not going to be.
But he really turns himself into one of our guys.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That stuff makes you want to defend the ball player. That's why people still love Buxton. I mean, even though he's had all these struggles, if he was a surly guy, we'd have just gone, go, get out of here. You can't stay healthy, whatever.
Kind of like what happened to Josh Donaldson when he was here.
Truly.
Yeah.
Instead, because Buxton's positive and he does good things in the community, we're like, oh, come on, man, get healthy. We want to see you.
So Austin Martin will get the call and the opportunity with Royce Lewis being injured. So Obviously, you want to try to make the most of said opportunity, and that's kind of the theme for the opening topic today, because we talked about this is Easter weekend, and we kind of joked around about, well, even the White House does Easter egg hunts. It feels like everybody's getting involved. So how could we make eggs involved in our opening topic? And not just because we can be a breakfast show on Saturday mornings, but we thought,
oh, that's a good point.
Who are the players that were hyped up to join Minnesota teams, whether it was draft, free agency, what have you, and just laid an egg when they got here? And I think it's going to be a fun topic, but I use the word fun facetiously because I almost called you back when we decided on this one this week, and I thought, can we do something to put a positive spin on it too? Maybe not, but that's okay.
Maybe we'll just do breakfast foods in the future.
There you go.
And we can turn it positive that way.
That could get weird, though.
Imagine on our show, huh?
Right. We could talk about the Greenies era and be like, is that a different sort of bacon?
We could talk about who was the greatest pancake.
There you go.
Know how you'd get
offensive
there.
lineman. There you go.
Right. So, anyways, I want to start. Speaking of offensive linemen, I'd like to start with the Vikings just to kind of get this
hyped players that laid an egg.
Yep, and the greatest. So, if you looked on the Minnesota pantheon of this, the guy named Herschel Walker comes to mind, right? Because
he does,
and I am 100% guilty of when they made that trade. I said, we are good to go.
Yeah.
Your
dad tried to warn you.
Oh, he did.
Yes.
100%. He sat me down and he goes, I know this is important to you, but you need to live. But I thought, because I'm a college football guy too, right?
Mr. Georgia was going to be the answer.
Herschel Walker's the second best college running back I ever saw, right? And
Who's the first?
Bo.
Okay, that's fair.
Bo Jackson is a different level. But Herschel was the man in the SEC when that's, it's always been the best football conference.
Right.
He was light years better than everybody else. So I'm like, we got him.
Here's what we should have known. You talk about him being a great college running back, and he was. He was at Georgia with that big G on the side of the helmet. Should have known a guy that succeeded with that was going to do nothing but sabotage the Minnesota Vikings. But let me come back with this question.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. It was the first name that popped into my head too. But then I pondered this, pun somewhat intended, and Herschel Walker and Christian Ponder, other than both playing for the Vikings at some point, shouldn't be in the same sentence, but here we go. Did Herschel Walker lay an egg because of Christian Ponder dealing with expectations? Mm-hmm. Herschel Walker wasn't terrible here. He was misused, but he came with expectations because we literally sold the farm to get him, just like Christian Ponder laid an egg, if you will, but never should have been worthy of that 12th overall pick or whatever it was.
Which is, we're not talking draft right now, but 100% my concern with guys like J.J. McCarthy or, Lord forbid, Penix or Nix if they draft them.
But it's
at
also
11.
what you love about talking about the draft.
I understand, but you can't ponderize those. Right. You could ponderize those three quarterbacks because they're not ready for this level. And if you draft them at 11, people don't want to see Sam Darnold if the number 11 pick is sitting in there, and you're just going to kill one of those three. Drake May can do it, and Williams can do it. Jaden Daniels maybe. Those three aren't ready, and so I use ponderized as an adjective for screwing up a quarterback.
All right, that's fair. Since we're talking about quarterbacks, can I go with my egg-laying quarterback?
Please.
I called him Donovan McFlab, but it was Donovan McNabb as a Viking.
That's true, and he's the reason Ponder had to play,
right?
Actually,
as quickly as he did.
Yeah,
and back then Ponder was an upgrade. That's how much Donovan McNabb, by the time we got him, had fallen off.
So you've watched football for a long time. I've watched football for a long time. What's the worst pass you've ever seen?
That was a completion or just a pass?
Just a pass.
Okay, so because both of my answers would have taken place for the Vikings at Lambeau Field. One was a completion. It was the Sean Mannion that ended up to Garrett Bradbury for a substantial gain.
Forgot about
the other one was in the wild card game at Lambeau that the Vikings lost with Joe Webb at quarterback. And they were using Adrian, and we're just going to run, and they're not going to be able to stop us, and we'll stay in this game that way. Well, they finally got into a 3rd and long, and Joe Webb had to pass and basically dropped back and threw a jump version of a slider, and you went, oh, this game's over.
Yeah. I will tell you that the worst pass I've ever seen was Donovan McNabb, the last game he played for the Vikings, when he had a first down, wide open, wide
and threw a slider down the way?
6 hops to the guy. And I was like, oh, Lord, what in the world? We could run Jimmy Kleinsaucer out there at quarterback and not get that play. And that was the beginning of the Ponder era, was the next game, because that's not a professional quarterback any longer. That's a great take, Donovan McNabb.
All right, so we've picked 2, but I know even when we were discussing this topic, we kind of said there could be 17. It depends on what your expectations are.
I want to go back, right?
Just remember, we have 3 more teams to do in 15 minutes.
Okay, I want to go back a little bit, and my guy is going to be Dave Casper. because we brought Dave Casper in to kind of fix the tight end. He was one of us, and he was a big guy, a Hall of Famer with the Raiders, right? And he came here and was just a guy, and you'd watch him and you'd be like, oh, Casper's going to break out today. And it would be 2 receptions for 30 yards and 1 first down.
I'm going to give you one that I don't believe in, but I want people to I'm going to go Paul Baldwin from Mike Myers' character on Saturday Night Live here and talk amongst yourselves about this one. Is Randy Moss the second time an option?
Yes.
Because when we brought him back, we automatically, when we think of Randy Moss, we think it's 98, 99, 2000, prime of his career again. We got him at the end, and I know he got along with Brad Childress, not at all, and that was the problem. But it was kind of the writing on the wall, too, because Randy played for other teams after that and didn't do much.
Yeah, we got him on the original downslide. Speaking of guys who we got in the downslide, how about Yannick Ngakoue?
Yannick Ngakoue, yes.
Yes, because he cost us quite a bit of draft capital, and we thought we got a guy, and what we got was a sprinter who sometimes got to the quarterback but was useless beyond that.
How about pick a linebacker? You could go Desmond Bishop, you could go Chris Claiborne, you could go Broderick Thomas, Darryl Talley. All of these guys were huge names elsewhere. Came to Minnesota, and you went, oh, yeah, he's here.
Kicker de jour.
Yeah, Doug Bryan leading the way.
Yep,
Dan Bailey, Morton Anderson.
The kicker punter guy, they traded a 4th-round pick to Baltimore for.
Oh, yeah, the kid who didn't even make the team.
Didn't even make the team.
Right.
How about this one? And we can argue about this one. I think I'm right. How about Garrett Bradbury? First-round center, going to be the guy. And, yeah, they re-signed him, but he hasn't been the guy.
Right. There's a reason why, and I know PA preferred your choices over mine, and a couple listeners did too, by the way, if you'd like that feather in your cap. But there's a reason why I said if I'm taking a divisional foe player and bringing him over here, I'm bringing Ragnow. Not just because he's one of us, but he's also a center worth a damn, and Garrett Bradbury isn't.
Yep. No, that's 100%. All right, so you go and then direct us.
I was going to say, we tackled football very, very well. Would you like to go to basketball next? Because the Timberwolves are a fun talking topic, and we'll do more of that throughout the show. They're a challenge here because for the better part of the last 20 years, almost everybody's laid an egg. I think you go to their draft picks a lot here.
Yes, in fact, I have written down every first rounder not named Cat, Ant, or Ricky.
Right. I mean, you've got Luke Longley, you've got Felton Spencer, you've certainly got Rashad McCants, you've got Wes Persons, I believe.
You got the Johnson kid, the forward they ended up drafting the year before, Wesley Johnson. Yeah, you just keep you can name years better than you can name players.
Right. I'll tell you what. One that probably deserves a break that I'm not sure if you had him on your list or not. The Vikings did okay with Wiggins. Yeah. Excuse me, did I just say the Vikings? The Timberwolves did okay. Yeah, the Vikings. Andrew Wiggins would be great as a wide receiver.
Well, no, didn't they have a tight end named Wiggins who was pretty good?
Jermaine, yes. Yeah. He hurdled guys rather well.
Yeah. So, no, Andrew Wiggins just turned into be an enigma. He wasn't bad. I mean, he was just an enigma, and they did okay on the trade.
How about big-time draft picks that they've brought here? You could certainly take Anthony Bennett. Do you take D'Lo as somebody who laid an egg?
Anthony Bennett. That's the one people need to remember because he was so bad he didn't even sniff our team.
Well, and there's 2 more number 1 picks not made by us that ended up here. Michael Olowokandi, the team 20 years ago was outstanding. He wasn't.
No.
Joe Smith laid a different kind of egg.
Yeah, because he was good here.
Do you like your eggs nice and runny? Because Joe Smith lingered here for a while, even when he was gone because of the contract deal.
Yep, and again, ruined the franchise for a few years. How about AK-47? Because Kirilov was both not Kirilov, whatever his name is.
That's all right. Now we're even because I got the Vikings playing in the NBA. We're good. Yeah. We're off to a great start this morning.
AK-47 was brought in to be that sharpshooter guy that was going to give us the edge, and he was all right. He was okay.
See, and I defend that one because he was okay. That team in general was an infirmary because if you go with Andrei Kirilenko, you would also have to go with that's AK-47. You would also have to go with Brandon Roy, and Brandon Roy just couldn't stay healthy. He played 5 games with the Wolves.
Yeah, he was broken though. That's different. Roy was always beat up. But I got 2 guys that I'm interested in your take on. One is Derrick Rose, because Derrick Rose
put up that 50 piece, and we like to keep remembering that.
Did. And we were the team he came back with, right? Which is the same thing with Chauncey. Chauncey Billups we were the team he came back with and then left right away. But how about this for a very current Timberwolf that we had high expectations for that laid an egg? Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah, that's a different kind of egg-laying idea. I think that one's going to get litigiously ugly, if that can be a phrase.
No, I agree with you.
It's going to get very interesting. Now, a couple things on that, and we'll touch on it later, certainly during buy or sell, because the topic is basically who's buying, who's selling the Timberwolves. But number one, does it make Alex Rodriguez and Mark Laurie the cheapest owners in Minnesota? It's not the pull ads anymore.
Nice.
Or do you just understand that we should have known better all along? Alex Rodriguez would never bring anything nice to Minnesota. We should have known better.
Zalgad made a great point yesterday. He said, if it's money, then if they do buy the Timberwolves, are we going to have a house poor owners?
Well, A-Rod cheated enough during his baseball career. Why can't he cheat enough to get the money to own this team?
Sounds like J-Lo may have actually had a part in this.
It's getting interesting.
So let's switch gears.
All right, because we had a litany of Timberwolves still left, but not enough time. I had Mike Miller on my list. There were a lot of guys that were brought in that did well elsewhere. The Timberwolves for a while were a little bit like the Twins. The Twins would sign other teams' third or fourth starters and make them the number one here, and you'd go, I'd heard of that guy. He's going to be good.
I heard of that.
Timberwolves did that a ton with Chuck Person, Michael Williams, Mike Miller. Hey, they were good somewhere else.
King.
They're going to be good here. No, they're not.
Yeah.
They're going to put up numbers here because they're going to get more minutes than they're ever used to, but they're not good.
The short point guard from Dallas went back to Dallas.
JJ Barea?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so the Minnesota Wild. Let's do that real quick.
The egg-laying members of the Wild.
Well, and I think some of them are guilty. So we know hockey players a little bit better. Their names, even though...
Well, and this one lends itself to you bringing up Thomas Vanek again, doesn't it?
Right, and Vanek is a big deal to me, but I think that Danny Heatley is in the same boat. Like those two were the two best college players at about the same time,
right?
And both of them came here, and both of them weren't great. Heater's got an assist that's memorable, but that's about it. But I want to bring up somebody that my wife loves,
Nino Niederreiter,
and that's Nino.
Yeah.
Didn't Nino feel like he was always underachieving? Like he would do stuff and you'd go, oh.
That whole group did. Remember, it was the Niederreiter, Coyle, Granlund group.
But Niederreiter was the one that looked like he should be, like the Tuck guy that we had at one point, right?
Alex Tuck.
Yeah, big, powerful, should be able to get wherever he wants to get and just never did.
But is that laying an egg or is that underachieving? Because to me, this is extreme expectations not met, like the Thomas Vaneks, like the Marty Havlats, like Devin Setaguchi, which is probably more guilty because of who he was acquired for. That's part of the Burns deal.
But that's also part of the Nino deal because Clutterbuck was a fan favorite and he's still playing.
Right.
So I think he's a big one. Man, you hit it on the head with a couple of those other ones.
With Marty Havlat.
Havlat might be the biggest one of all time.
That's interesting. I would think we would hear from a lot of folks. We got a hockey guy coming up at 10:30, Bill Watson. I wonder if he'll have a take on that.
Yeah, I think we should ask him because we need to switch to the Twins in order to get to him.
All right. There's a lot of directions we could go here because there have been a lot of these. I'm going to go back a ways to start.
Oh, you are?
I'm going to start with Butch Husky.
Oh, Butch Husky's a good one. I thought you were going to go way back because I got one way back.
Because that was going to be, here's a guy who can hit 30, 40 home runs, had done some things with the Mets. He did nothing here. And it kind of started a litany of big names elsewhere that came here either too late or came here to discover that they were a one-hit wonder kind of deal. Because people forget that Ruben Sierra played for the Twins because don't blink or you missed it. That'd be one as well for me.
Yeah, no.
Brett Boone for 4 days would be another one for me.
And Young, the outfielder. What's
Delman?
his name? Delman Young. 1 year
and
then imploded.
Right. Well, and imploded personally as well.
So I want to go to two old-timers, right? I want to go to Louis Tiant, who pitched here for a year.
Yeah.
And then was okay, but was expected to be that guy, right? And turned in not to be that guy. And then personal favorite, right? I thought, you know what? We're going to bring him back here. He's got at least one really good year left in him. He's going to make this team, and we're going to be better because of it. In fact, he could be, if he comes back, a 2 or 3 starter. And he went 1-5 with an ERA of 7.8.
Was that Steve Carlton?
It was Steve Carlton.
Wow.
Lefty.
How'd I do getting that right?
Well, I gave you the ERA.
I was going to say, when you went the 1-5 piece with a balloon ERA, I went, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah. No, lefty, now Cardinal fan, watched Steve Carlton for the Phillies.
Yeah.
Had that demeanor that I thought. So Carlton, Cliff Lee, all those different kind of tough guy pitchers. I've always wanted the Twins to have one of those in their prime. And I thought, well, he's not in his prime. He's at the end of his career, but maybe he pulls out that 500 record, not even close.
Well, you mentioned guys that pitched here for a year who were big names elsewhere, and I feel like the Twins could make an entire all-time team of that because you've got Shoemaker, Archer, Vance Worley, Mike Pelfrey. I think Ricky Nolasco lasted longer than a year, but he was good everywhere but here.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make a staff or two with these types of guys.
Who's Carl Pavano? Is another one.
I disagree with that because I thought for 2.5 years he was their best pitcher, if not one of the best pitchers in the league.
But he kind of slides into that, what could have been.
I'll tell you what, though, he gets on Yankees radio as having laid an egg, and then he's, goes to Minnesota and figures it out.
Yeah, that's very true. The original, if Herschel's the prime example 2 is Tommy Herr.
Yes.
Only because of who he was traded for and the fact he was an all-star before.
Well, and I think that also makes a big difference because you talked about Herschel was acquired, you were ready to plan the parade yourself. When Tommy Herr was acquired, we went, why? And why are you getting rid of Tom Bernansky for this?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
I think the whole state at the same time said that.
Right.
How about Josh Donaldson, the maker of rain? When you make your own nickname up and it sticks, you should be a red flag. But he came here and I called you, remember?
Right.
I can't believe they just signed him. This is so awesome. Yep. Remind me next time if I get super excited about a guy.
Just temper the whole thing?
Yep, just pour cold water on it because he poured cold water on 2 full seasons.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I think people that don't see the game deep enough, barring an MVP type campaign from Correa, are going to say the same thing about him. And you can't because Correa brings everything intangible that Josh Donaldson can't.
Right, like the injury stuff that's gone on with them
right.
now with Lewis, but Buxton.
You watch, Carlos Correa will be the glue that keeps this team together when you could, throw your hands up in April because your pseudo MVP candidate is out for a while.
Well, I think that's what he did last year.
Yes.
I think he said, guys, we're going to continue, told fans, listen, this is just an injury. We're going to get through it, and they did.
Well, and I'll tell you this, I hope I don't jinx anything, but people will talk about, you need to keep Royce Lewis in bubble wrap and Byron Buxton too. I agree with you, but the guy that I would absolutely fear going down for any extended period of time right now is Carlos Correa because not only can he be the glue in the clubhouse, I know it's one game worth of at-bats, but it just looks different. It looks like you could be on the cusp of getting the Carlos Correa that everybody knew about in Houston.
Yeah, and he plays the most difficult position. Think about Twins shortstop since Gagne. I mean, there's one you can name, and I don't even remember his name because it's Dave. But the shortstop we had for 3-4 years that went to the Phillies afterwards hit a lot of triples.
Christian Guzman.
Yes. So it's, for me,
or Christian Guzman, depending upon who's pronouncing it.
It's Gagne, it's him, and it's Correa, and everything in between has been just kind of trash.
You didn't love Pat Mears enough?
I didn't. And J.J. Hardy would have been there had he had a decent year.
He was healthy for 10 minutes.
Yeah. So they haven't had a shortstop in forever. And so,
you didn't like Trevor Plouffe experimenting there?
Well,
Brian Dozier experimenting there?
I didn't mind so much because he gave away baseballs down the right field line like crazy when he was a shortstop.
Oh, and he also gave him down the left field line, but that's because they went by him first.
Yes, exactly correct.
But it's been fun talking about Twins past, Vikings past, Wolves past, Wild past that have laid an egg. Are we too negative, though? Because it was worth a laugh today, and thematically it fits with the weekend, but was this too negative of a topic? I enjoyed it, though, to be honest.
No, this is exactly what it was. What we need to do is challenge ourselves with the flip side. People that we brought in who overachieved than what we thought.
Right.
We'll get that.
We got to work that in somehow. I like your idea of who made for a pleasant breakfast for you. The first time you saw him, the first meal of the day was pretty good.
The one thing that I realized doing this list is I really don't watch the Wild enough. Because there's guys I'm sure that just, you mentioned Setaguchi and I went, oh my gosh, yeah, that guy.
I appreciate that because the one thing I learned as we did this is you were making lists. I thought, I don't make enough lists. I don't know if I'm going to hold my own in this, but hopefully I did. We're going to bunny hop right out of this first segment. Easter weekend here on the Northland Sports page. We got a big schedule ahead. Bill Watson right around the corner. Dave Hoops to follow. Justin Morneau kicks off hour number 2. Then we play buy or sell and we draw some lines. It's all on the Northland Sports page. Heck of a Saturday, the final one in March. Stick around. We'll be right back. That's right. Happy birthday to our first guest of the day. Bulldog legend and former NHLer Bill Watson is right around the corner. We're going to give him a lot of birthday love today, but first, Dave Cook, love for our sponsors.
Absolutely. Arola Architecture Studio, Hoops Brewing, OAR Holdings, Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer, Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Comfort Systems, Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance, and the Blackwoods Group.
I got to chime in real quick before you finish because you mentioned Mike Regan. I want to tell you this. Got a text from him during that first commercial break, and he said, thanks for the big intro. I'm back, and now I'm the leadoff hitter with your sponsors already. So he loved that early on.
Absolutely. Well, you got to give the
right.
You got to give the new guy or the
big
returning
welcome.
guy
the big welcome back.
Absolutely. And the Blackwoods Group, of course, Brian, their locations on London Road, in Proctor and in Two Harbors, Blackwater right downtown here, and Tavern on the Hill.
So very, very grateful for our sponsors. We've been at this now for almost 7 years. You'd think we'd be better by now, but we're working on it.
We are.
But one of the guys that has been with us multiple times over that time frame, is Mr. Bill Watson. I already talked about him. He was my first favorite Bulldog ever, the former UMD Bulldog and former NHLer, and now a birthday boy. He joins us by phone. Bill Watson, good morning, my friend.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for that little mini introduction. So, yeah, it's been a good start to the day. How's that sound?
Well, that's great. I hope you have the happiest of birthdays. As a hockey fan, you got to love it because there's a lot of good NCAA action right now. The whole tournament's been pretty good.
Yeah, you know what? Of the games I've been able to watch, they've been good to watch. I can tell you that. It's been some good hockey, some fun hockey. Obviously, yesterday I was a little disappointed. I wanted to see our league with North Dakota and Western win, and unfortunately they got beat by the two Michigan schools. But for the most part, it's been some real good hockey. We've got one left in the fight in Denver, and they obviously got a very good team. So we'll see how they do today against Cornell. But I'll tell you, watching Boston College play, they're about as good as it gets in terms of the depth they have. And, man, I have not seen a college team like that in a while with that kind of skill level.
I have to agree with you because I watched little bits of BC in their game yesterday, and I was monitoring it while I was working. And when I left, it was 1-1. When I returned, it was 6-1. And that sounds like that's the kind of team they have. Don't blink or you miss a bunch.
Well, I mean, I caught some of their games last weekend when they played UMass, and I mean, UMass had a nice team. They gave Denver everything they could have, and I mean, they took UMass apart 8-1, and then they beat Boston University 6-2 the next night. I'm going, oh my God, this in the playoffs, in the most part, the games are pretty tight. They have a way of exposing teams really quickly with their skill level.
They certainly do. Now, Bill, you talked about what's left, and I know Dave Cook is going to want to chime in on this, but the big one today for me is BU in Minnesota. Could be one of the best of the tournament. That being said, did the committee goof a little bit here, having those two meeting this early with the geographical distance? How did they end up in the same region anyway?
You know what? I got to give the committee a break. It's hard. That's it with the rules and how they make it, where you don't want to play, a team in your conference the first round. I mean, listen, 12 years ago, we were in a region. We had just won the national championship in 2011 and 2012. We got beaten triple overtime in our league playoff to Denver, and we went from being a 1 seed to a 2 seed, and we went to the same region as Boston College. Well, that year, Boston College and us were number one ranked in the country probably for 20 weeks, and somehow we had to play them, in the second round after we beat Maine, and I can't remember who Boston College beat, maybe Air Force or something like that, because they're the number one seed. So we have to play. We probably should have played Boston College in the Frozen Four rather than play them in the regional final. It is the way it is. I mean, I guess looking back with the experience that we've had at University of Minnesota Duluth and the runs that we've had, and you got to, I used to say, you're gonna have to beat the team anyways. Coach Sandlin talks about it. You have to beat them anyways. Whether you have to beat them in the first round, second round, third round, or the championship game, you're gonna have to beat them somewhere along the line.
That is a great point. Bill, one of the things I love about this show is we do get some listener interaction, and I have a question from a listener. He knows you're a former NHLer. He knows you're a former Blackhawk, and he said, I'm told that Bill Watson has a great Bob Probert story. Can you share it? Is it suitable for radio?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
So it might have to be over a beer someday.
Yeah. Bob was it's rest in peace. Bob was a special player. He was as tough as nails. I mean, you think I was talking to Jason Watt this morning, and we were just talking about some players along the way at my favorite breakfast spot, the Great Harvest, in the morning, and we were talking about players like Bob Probert, and I was fortunate, I played with Al Secord. Al Secord scored 50 goals and had 300 minutes of penalties. People don't realize, that's one tough guy. Can you imagine how many goals he would have scored if he wasn't in a penalty bunch? But I mean, and Bob was in that same category. And Bob didn't score like Al did. And then again, Bob had Steve Yzerman to play with, a very special player, but Al had the great Dennis Savard to play with, which is a whole other level of player. So, but it was. Yeah, I mean, that story I don't think I can share.
All right, so someday I'll pick your brain on that one. Maybe your next birthday, as we want to wish you, of course, a very happy birthday today.
Thank you.
One more question to piggyback off that, though. You talk about guys that were enforcers but could score. Yeah. Does the enforcer have a place in today's game anymore? Because it just seems like we're doing back in the day with the Ty Domies, the Bob Proberts. etc.
Yeah.
They're just, is there fighting in hockey? Yes. Are there players known for that? I don't feel like it anymore.
Reeves only.
Right.
I think you guys. I think the game today. I still think they'll always. I'm an old school guy. I grew up in the late '60s. I turned 60 today, so give the listeners an idea of how old I am. I mean, I grew up in the late '60s and '70s, and I grew up watching the Winnipeg Jets and the WHA. That was World Hockey Association, but that was some wild hockey. You saw bench clearing brawls, you saw fighting, this and that. And then obviously, you think about it, you had the Philadelphia Flyers and the Broad Street Bullies. And then you had the movie. People don't realize the movie did not glamorize hockey in the most best way with Slapshot. I mean, it didn't glamorize the game, but I think there'll always be fighting in hockey at the National Hockey League level. I really do. I think there's an unwritten code, and you have to stand up for yourself. And I think it'll always be in the game, especially at the NHL level.
Hey, Bill, we were talking, Brian and I were talking earlier about how the name, image, and likeness thing has just torn the Minnesota Gopher basketball team apart. They got like 3 guys on the roster now. I am wondering, one, what you see as a future of NIL and college hockey, and 2, UMD's had a couple down years, but it looks like their roster next year is going to be loaded. When they come back and they start playing the way that Duluthians are expecting them to play, frankly, do you think it'll be a little sweeter that they've had a couple down years now?
Listen, the last couple of years, have been tough without a doubt. But if you're referring to the NIL, we're just at the infancy of it in men's hockey, and that's kind of across the board. And it's really at the beginning for us. And without a doubt, it's going to, don't fool yourself. It's going to play a major impact. How we view ourselves versus, we think we've been kind of that upper echelon program. But again, with pure resources, it's difficult for us at times to compete against, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, those schools, and North Dakota for that matter. But we feel like we're right there. We're at that next tier. And, of course, we have to have that type of ammunition when you have those type of players that are going to come in. And, you are right. Listen, we know the last couple of years have been difficult. But, this year was a series of some very poor breaks, for our team.
Right.
We lose our, one of our best players, one of the better players in the league in Dominic James. And that kind of changed the whole face of our team. But I got to give the kids credit because they never stopped. They kept working and working and working. I give them credit. They swept St. Cloud at the end of the year. And unfortunately, we went in and played probably the best team in our league in the playoffs in Denver in the first round. And it was what it is. Sometimes I think as a program, you'll learn just as much from winning as you learn when you get some humility when you're near the bottom. And that makes that rise back up to the top taste that much sweeter. And Coach Sandlin's 4 years, we've tasted both. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's a lot sweeter when you're at top, but you also appreciate where you came from. And we've had both ends of that spectrum. But our team, our program, we've got a lot of great talent coming in. And, we're very fortunate because some of it's alumni talent, that's the most flattering thing you can have in your program is the next generation to come in and play with your program, which means the world to all of us alumni.
You make a great point, but we don't see as many straight out of high school to college hockey stories anymore. We see juniors to college a lot more. What's the biggest jump there? What is the biggest difference? Because these guys that are coming in, the plants, what have you, they're finally coming to UMD, but they're not coming straight from Hermantown. What's the biggest jump when they've gone somewhere else first?
But that's across the board, Brian. You're seeing it. I know it's negatively affecting high school hockey, but you're seeing so many of these kids making the decision at 11th grade or for that matter, 10th grade, and they go jump and they go play a development program in Ann Arbor. They go play in the USHL. Some go play in the North American League, jump into the USHL. Those junior leagues have become such a development process, so to speak. I was raised in Canada, and that's really how the Canadian system I grew up in was that I left home very early and I went and played junior hockey for 4 years. From when I was like 14 till I was 17 years old, and the development was just such a bigger jump than it was, say, for if I stayed back home and played my area team. And you're seeing a lot of that infiltrate especially the Minnesota brand of hockey. Because let's say, I'm heavily biased, but Minnesota produces as much as, or if not the best American players across the board. I know there's other states that would contest that, but if you look at the pure raw numbers, the state of Minnesota, the tough thing is that you go watch a state championship, state tournament, a lot of those kids are not there. The best 11th and 12th graders are usually playing somewhere else, unfortunately, but the kids that stay back still get rewarded because they get a chance to play in their own state tournament.
You make a good point there as well, because when you look at the Bulldog roster next year, you might be seeing a state championship game from, say, 2021, because you're going to have Shagabe, Plant, etc. Bill, I got to ask you this. With the talent that's in the Boston area right now at the college level, you mentioned how good BC is. We'll have to see if BU gets by Minnesota. On paper, it looks like they should. Is the NCAA tournament just a makeshift beanpot this year?
Hey, what's funny is that, obviously it's rare for me to say this, but I shouldn't say it out loud, but I think Minnesota probably has a very good chance to beat Boston University just watching the game the other night. I can just tell you that. I think if there's a team that can play with Boston University, it's Minnesota. It really is, because they can get up and down the rink. They got some really good depth scoring, and I think their goaltending solid. And you know what? I hate this. There's such validity in this when you've been there. Like Minnesota was a bounce away from winning the national championship last year. We've been there, right? Our program in 2017, give us a couple more minutes. We probably took Denver into overtime and win that national championship, but we don't. But our kids come back, and they come back hungry. And we won consecutive national championships in 18 and 19. We probably could have won another one in 20 if it wasn't from COVID, because we had the team to do it. So it when you get there. And you can kind of see that in Minnesota. They came back against a pretty good Omaha team and beat them in the third period, and that takes a lot. I know that Minnesota was the home team, but Omaha had as many fans there as as Minnesota did. So I just think that game today, will be a very good game. I look at the Denver versus Cornell game. Cornell, I know Mike very well, Schaefer. He's a hell of a coach. And I know they're going to try, and I hate saying this, they're going to try to back it in and just try to, smother Denver's offense. But boy, David Carl does a hell of a job at Denver. They'll come up with something. They'll be regrouping the puck. It'll become a puck possession game, I think, with Denver and Cornell. If Denver has the puck a lot, you're in trouble. They're awfully good, and they can put you on that speed bag pretty fast, and you're in trouble because they have so much talent. And they have, I think, in my opinion, that 28 on defense, I beat his name up so bad, Zev Bam or something like that. He's a freshman at Denver. He's going to probably be a top 5 pick. I think he's as good a player as there is in college hockey.
That's a very good synopsis of both matchups. And Dave, I want to go back to you to close it out with Minnesota and BU today. You kind of said it before the show, and I think what Bill said kind of alludes to it. Minnesota is a 2 seed in that region. They're kind of a number 1 seed that just ends up a 2 because they stumbled with some inconsistency along the way.
Yeah, they really did. But, the one thing, and Billy, let me know what you think. The one thing I think Minnesota actually has the advantage today is goaltending. Like both teams can fly. Both teams can fly and move the puck. But, how's the last time you said, well, Minnesota's advantage is their goaltender? That never seems to be the thing.
It's probably back to when they won their national championships.
I was going to say, Adam Hauser wants a word, but that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, it is what listen, if you can get the right parts at the right time going in the right direction, that's huge. And I tell you, Minnesota just has sometimes that right mixture. I know, God, obviously they'd like to have Faber. They'd love to have some of the guys they lost, that Logan Cooley and all that. But sometimes, those guys, their fourth-line guys, Jackson Nelson's got 17 goals. That's a fifth-year guy's got 17 goals.
Right.
That's a heck of a year, right? You're happy that guy stuck around. And when you get that kind of depth scoring, that makes a huge difference on your team. And you are right. Their goaltending, I thought their goaltending against Omaha, especially with that 5-minute major, was the difference in that game.
Certainly was a difference. Everybody trying to play a solid 60 minutes or more if needed in this tournament. Speaking of 60, make 60 the greatest year yet. Happy birthday, Bill Watson. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the time. You take care. Have a great Saturday. Have a great Easter with your families.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
you as well. Thanks, Billy. We'll do this again soon. You know that. I'll talk to you shortly.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. That's our guy, Bill Watson. So many intros for him, too. Former Bulldog, former NHLer, Hobie winner.
Yeah, Hobie winner. You forget about that because of all the other accolades.
Right.
I think the NIL thing, Brian, over time here at UMD with the passion is going to be really interesting because we could be a location where players come.
It will be very interesting. Could be the antithesis of what Gopher basketball, as we said, is dealing with. Right now, Billy Watson, we hope he's having a great day because he's dealing with his birthday. We're having a fun Saturday. More to come. We're the Northland Sports Page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, stick around.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm drinking all the beer at Hoops Brewing if I get the chance. Welcome back to the Northland Sports Page. Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, Hoops Brewing, one of our tremendous sponsors. We'll talk to Dave in just a moment. First, we want to give you all of those great sponsors.
Yes, OAR Holdings, Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer. Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing. The Blackwoods Group, including their locations on London Road, Tavern on the Hill, Blackwater right downtown, and of course their locations in Proctor and in Two Harbors. Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Comfort Systems, Arola Architecture Studio, Hoops Brewing, and Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance.
Very grateful for all of our sponsors. So grateful that this guy joins us just about every Saturday, and he's back again. Dave Hoops, I'm going to start with a question I've asked you just a week ago, but now it has a double meaning because I know you're in a hockey one, and I know you're in a basketball one at the collegiate level. Good morning, and how's your bracket, sir?
They're about the same as they were last week. They're fine. I'm not going to be winning any pools, but I've been confident that Connecticut's going to win it all, and I still am, and I think tonight will be a really good game. It's a ridiculously good basketball weekend, men's and women's.
I think you're correct. I think with the UConn-Illinois game today, you might have the two most athletic teams left in the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really fun. And we're going to have a Clemson or an Alabama in the Final Four, which is, those are football schools.
Yeah, wrong
kind
sports.
Of fun.
Well, and how
exactly.
about Jim Valvano has got to be smiling from up above because this NC State story is familiar, but that was, 30-plus years ago now.
It's a great story. I was hoping Oregon would be the Cinderella that won their way in. NC State keeps going. I beat Duke all the way. Let's get behind them and get an 11 seed in the Final Four. That'd be great.
I was going to say Houston goofed it all up because it's actually a 40-plus-year-old story, and NC State could have faced Houston at some point in this tournament, but Houston is no more. Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah. Well, it's just ridiculous, and and Mooch was talking about hockey. There's such great BC. He's right, but. This is a huge weekend. Women's basketball,
yep.
And I'm a huge proponent. But we are now naming players that like Kobe. It's like Caitlin. It's like Angel. It's one name players that are the must-watch situation. Yeah, well, it's even bigger than the men's in some way, which thrills me. It is a remarkable weekend as far as that game tonight, Duke against Connecticut, for example. It's good stuff.
When you talk about the players being brought up, that is a big step for women's basketball, especially with the first name basis type stuff. But specifically with the women's tournament this year, I like that they're doing it, but in a strange way, by having all these first name players that we love, are we doing a disservice to probably the best team? Because you mentioned the players that you did, and you've got Paige at UConn and Caitlin, in Iowa, and a number of LSU players. South Carolina's got to be over there going, you can't beat us if you try right now. How come nobody's talking about us?
They don't need to be talked about. They love this. They are the best team by far.
Yeah.
This is all just noise, and in the meantime, more eyeballs are coming to the whole sport because of it. it'd be a shock beyond shocks if Carolina doesn't win it all. So I think they're not being too disrespected.
I'm going to give you one more piece on women's basketball. A lot of times the 3-letter tournament is, well, you were good but not that good, and that's why you're in that tournament. The Minnesota Gophers on the women's side, they just were injured. And now they're healthy again. They're proving they're pretty good. They're probably going to do a lot of damage in this 3-letter tournament, the NIT, of course.
And how nice is that? I mean, the way Minnesota basketball has been for the last 7-8 years, both genders, to see this run, that's pretty cool.
So I have no issue rooting for women's and men's basketball and football when it comes to the Gophers. When it comes to the sport on the ice, I can't do it. But Bill Watson said something that I didn't call him on early on in his segment when he said, I wanted to see our league, I wanted to see North Dakota do better last night. And I went, how did that feel to say that as a Bulldog fan, you're rooting for North Dakota? That just doesn't seem right. I'm going to have a hard time rooting for Minnesota because I never do, but do you think others will feel different? Because Boston's got plenty going on between BU and BC, Dave Hoops.
Well, I think Bill's right in that they can compete with BU and possibly beat them. I will not be rooting for them, never do. And I'm not all broken up because we don't have all these Minnesota schools in there. BC is about as good as they come. And, of course, I'm obsessed with Will Smith, who is going to be, the top center for the San Jose Sharks in a year or two.
Boy, are they making sure of it, too. They can't win a game if you asked them to.
No, and then they're going to get, if the league doesn't take them away, they're going to get Celebrini as well. And, it's going to be, eventually they'll be back. But this BC team, that's one line. That's the same line that was at the U.S. development level. They're superstars beyond, and they're all freshmen. It's just unbelievable. But, the Gophers can win tonight, Dave, for sure. I'll be keeping an eye on it, but I think it'll be a great game.
And, of course, we got game 2 of the Twins season this afternoon, 10 after 3. They'll take on the Royals again. Unfortunately, they'll do it without Royce Lewis. Injury-riddled first win of the season. Max Kepler shooken up a little bit. Royce Lewis, obviously, much more severely. But I know you've said this before, Dave Hoops. You're like me. They got a Twins uniform on. You're rooting for whoever's out there every day.
Yeah, 100%. I think they did this last year. They had a game and then a day off, and I think Ryan's pitching today. And
correct.
Opening against KC is, it's low-hanging fruit, and injuries happen. It's early. But there's no reason to not bill the Twins as the favorite in the division. I think that's very reasonable.
I think it is, too. I'm interested to see who feels differently in terms of which team thinks that they're going to take the throne, because Detroit
does.
Well, Detroit has the roster that looks like it. Cleveland has the bit more of a veteran presence. Kansas City probably has some of the best young players, but you look at them and you go, you're 1 to 2 years away. Yeah. And then the White Sox are just a team that happens to still be in the division.
How about the wheels falling off that White Sox team that we thought
they made it certain
ago.
With the transactions they made it certain the wheels were going to fall off.
2 years ago, the White Sox were going to be the team that was going to be the AL Central team to beat for a decade.
Well, I'll tell you this. The White Sox dealt Dylan Cease, and the White Sox might as well cease to exist for a while, it looks like.
Right. They raised the White Sox flag.
So the division title might be a question that we'll have to answer different ways as the season goes on, but Dave Cook always has the best questions for Dave Hoops. I'll turn it over to him.
So normally they're not super timely, Brian, but I got a couple super timely ones. So, gentlemen, I know that there's been a lot of purchases and unpurchases this week. I wonder what's the favorite thing, guys, that you've ever purchased?
Huh.
That's a good answer. I like that. That means this is a good question.
It's the same answer with twofold. So before I got my driver's license, I like many people my age, I was working, and I bought my very first car at the age of 15, which was too much car, a Ford Mustang Fastback, 1969, way too much car for
yes, I guess
a person my age. But that was the most amazing thing ever. But, then I went to Toyota pickups, and I just love the truck I have now. So that, or maybe when I purchased my wife's wedding ring, that was a pretty major purchase.
Dang it. Dave Hoops kept going, and he just took mine because I thought, as a non-driver, I can't go the vehicle direction, but I know she's probably not listening, but I think it needs to be the engagement ring. I remember when I did it, and I remember actually when I told my parents that I had done it. We were sitting at Blackwoods, one of our tremendous sponsors, and my now wife's birthday was rapidly approaching, and I hadn't been in a ton of serious relationships, but my parents were aware that this one was, and they looked at me and said, what should we get Jen for her birthday? What is she into? And I said, I have no idea what you guys should get her, but I'm getting her an engagement ring. And the entire dinner table just stopped and went, wait, what? And so that's easily the best purchase I ever made. So Dave Hoops and I are aligned there. That should come as no shock to you. We've been aligned several times.
Yeah, no, Dave, I'm kind of with you, but it was a different car. My not my first car, but the car that.
Well, his wife just turned the show off. Go ahead.
No, she knows that when we got engaged, we didn't have enough money to really buy anything fancy.
You got a decoder ring.
Yeah, well, we got rings, but
it was around the collar.
It didn't have as much to do with the ring as it did the whole sentiment
Fair.
of the minute. But we bought a 1970 Olds Cutlass, and we had to sell it then for diapers, basically. And so that purchase though was different, Dave. The first time, and saying that might have been too much car for you. We were moving out west, western Minnesota, and we were leaving Bemidji. And I had our little Toyota car, and Dana took the Cutlass, and she passed somebody on Highway 2 and just disappeared. And when I caught up with her, she went, that car's really fast. Yes, and how are you doing now? But yeah, so that's the first part of that question. The second part of that question is, what's something you've purchased that you've had buyer's remorse on?
This will be interesting. Don't say the engagement ring again,
Don't
Dave
say
Hoops.
the
Go
engagement
ahead.
ring.
No. I think that I would probably have to say the time that I bought a Ford. the only
We won't have a Ford dealership
that-
sponsoring us anytime soon.
That 69 Mustang?
Please continue.
Well, no. I bought a Ford pickup when I opened the brewery, and it was amazing, and it was an incredible truck, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it was, again, too much truck, too big, too hard to park. I understand why they're so loved, but I love my little Toyota, so it kept its value. I'm not wildly upset about it, but I probably realized I didn't have to do that. So, easy answer.
I could go a few different directions with this. I could go to kind of a dark place and say, if I really thought about it, probably my current house. I bought it because I needed most things to function to be on one level, and my house 100% accomplishes that. But in so many other ways, it is so much a fixer-upper that we get overwhelmed and don't even know where to begin. If I wanted to have some fun with some sports humor, I might say I'm disappointed that I renewed my season tickets for the Vikings in 2010. That was Brett Favre's second year, and that wasn't worth it at all. Otherwise, technologically speaking, I was just talking about this with my wife, I think yesterday. We have a large number of devices. iPads, iPhones, you name it, we've got it. As a teacher, she utilizes just about all of them. But everything we've purchased, we've gotten one for her and one for me. I look at what I have and how much I rely on my phone to just do. I have an iPad and an Apple Watch that I go, what do I have that for again? My phone accomplishes all of this.
Yeah, that's
so there's been some buyer's remorse with that.
We made a purchase, Dave. We bought a Jeep Grand Cherokee for Aaron because we'd had Jeep Grand Cherokees for years, and we bought him one off the kind of the back row of the dealership, which I learned a lesson. Don't buy a car off the back row of the dealership. And we had been saving forever. We had 10 grand in cash. We put it all down, and we didn't get 40 miles out of town, and the first repair bill came up.
Oof.
And so by the time we got rid of it, we were in for double what we originally paid for it.
Do you have a grand finale, my friend?
I do. I think this one should be fun. All right. So Dana's out and about playing the Easter Bunny today.
Okay.
I'm wondering, what's your favorite, dress up kind of character? And let me give you a quick story. Brian, you'll laugh at this. Dave, you'll laugh at this. There was a point in my life where one of the things that I did to make extra money was play Barney at birthdays.
I remember that.
Yes,
I do remember that.
So, favorite dress-up character, Harley D. Husky or something on that order.
I can tell you that's not it, but go ahead, Dave Hoops.
Well, Elf. I dressed up as Elf a lot, and I'm remembering a Halloween party that Lee Davidson had at his house. And
Wait,
I
want to make sure we heard you right. Are we talking Elf as in Buddy the Elf, Will Ferrell? Are we talking Elf with an A, like the Mel Mac TV show?
Nope, Elf, Will Ferrell.
Okay.
I thought it would be funnier. The other one would have been funnier.
But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, that just ended up being kind of my go-to, and plus, that movie can bear 20 more rewatchings. So
Yes.
Yeah.
that's we had a lot of fun with that, even though it was even Halloween night. So I did it anyway.
So I, again, have a couple. I've cheated for this whole segment. I've never stuck to one answer. I think I've given anywhere from 1, 2, or 3. My favorite dress-up character story is to find out when I was an adult that during my elementary school years when Santa would come to the classrooms that Santa was my dad. It took several years until I was made aware of that. I wondered why every Christmas from like 2nd to 6th grade, I got exactly what I asked for because Dad would just take notes, showing it to my mom going,
That's
here you go, we're done. So that was pretty neat. For me, I'm born in the 70s, but just barely, March of 79. I should have been born earlier in the 70s because like the Simpsons character, Disco Stu, I like dressing up in the loud, ugly, weird disco era type clothes. So that's been fun for me. And I've done the Dumb and Dumber suits with guys. I've got the blue one. I've got friends that got the orange one. I've always enjoyed that too.
That's awesome. So that was hopefully fun.
It was.
That is a really interesting. Dave, someday I'll tell you the whole Barney story.
That was super fun. So no matter what I'm wearing, I'm going to Hoops Brewing for good beer. Tell me more about what I can expect on the menu this time around, Dave Hoops.
Well, I keep on pushing the fact that we're going to peach and pear and raspberry, which is probably, like our 3rd and 4th best-selling beers. We'll have on full time. It's the end of Rink Rat, if you like it. I know there are fans out there get it while it lasts. By the time the playoff starts, it's usually gone. And then we have a beautiful German Pilsner on right now that I highly recommend. And people that normally drink our light beer hell are raving about it. As far as things to do, we've got the Mill Room. People really like the intimacy, the kind of the mellow vibe back there. And then we've got the Twins. We've got the NHL playoffs coming. We've got wall-to-wall basketball and hockey with the college kids. You name it. We're ready to go.
I was going to say, you've done a lot of good written pieces about how to match beer with food, beer with events, beer with holidays. Have you ever thought about matching a beer with a specific sport? I don't know how you do it, but say, NCAA basketball fans, this is for you. NCAA hockey fans, this one's for you. Major League Baseball, this is the best one. Have you thought about going that route?
I have, and I've got a kind of a working one. The article coming out this Wednesday is about the best beers I've ever had. And the situation I was in, that beer stays with me. So you can read that on Wednesday in the DNT, and give me your own take on it if you'd like.
We may do that, Dave Hoops. I love talking to you each and every week. Let's do it again next Saturday. Always a fun time of year in sports when we get to March, but April will be just as enjoyable. We'll talk next week. It'll be April already, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Happy Easter to you. Enjoy your day.
You as well. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Dave. Get on down to Hoops Brewing. You can never go wrong there. Beer drinkers and hellraisers, they cater to both at Hoops Brewing. Stick around.
Absolutely.
Hour number 2 is next. A big one. Justin Morneau will join us. We'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Ramp. Are you the decision maker in your company? Consider this. For the first time in decades, there's a better option for a corporate card and spend management platform. Meet Ramp, the only corporate card and spend management system designed to help you spend less money so you can make more. Most corporate credit cards offer points as incentives, but those points amount to less than their worth in real cash value. Ramp's business cards offer you cash back, real money in your pocket. Plus, you control who spends what with each vendor. And Ramp's software collects and verifies receipts automatically, which means you'll stop wasteful spending and close your books in hours instead of days. Businesses that use Ramp add up to 5% to their bottom line the first year. If you're a decision maker, adding Ramp could be one of the best decisions you've ever made. And now get $250 when you join Ramp for free. Just go to ramp.com/easy. Ramp.com/easy. RAMP.com/easy.
Cards issued by Sutton Bank and Celtic Bank, members of FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.